Hi everyone, welcome to this video. This is going to be a tutorial on the shaders that you see here on the screen. They are part of a pack called Uncharted Basement and FX, made by us and available on the asset store. And I'm going to walk you through how to use these shaders. So let's start with the water one. Well, first of all, you have to import the pack first, and you can find the shaders under the TGP folder here. And yeah, let's begin. So the water one. I'm going to create it from scratch so you can see how it's made. Create a material, let's call it water material. Go here and assign the water shader here. Okay, so next we need the cube. Let's save this one here. Okay. I guess here. So what do we see? Nothing much. First we have to assign a normal map texture, and I'm going to walk you through where to find one. Go to shaders and the TGP folder, misc shaders, water, and you find this normal map here. This is the one. Of course, this is the one that I found on the internet, which is free to use. You can find some more and use appropriate ones. Just make sure that when you import a new one, it's set as a normal map. And click apply. Anyway, so let's go here over to the properties. We can define two colors for the shallow color or the surface color, and one for the deep color down beneath us. So let's make a yellow water. Let's make green water. Okay, so here we see the color. What else can we do? Well, first of all, we see that the water isn't flowing naturally. We see that the water isn't flowing naturally. We can control the flow by the normal strength property here. Something like 0.9 would be fine. Now there's also distortion amount. There's no water. It would look real without distortion. So let's increase a little bit. Okay, here we have the distortion of this sphere inside. This is just this sphere which I duplicated and put it inside. Okay, so what else? Here we have the water depth property. It just is a value which defines when does the shallow color end and when does the deep color begin. So the more you increase it, the more shallow color, and the more you decrease it, the less shallow color. Okay. And now we have this depth opacity value here. What this is simply, if we put it to 0, if we set to 0, there is no color at all. And if we start, we must work in the negative range of numbers. We start seeing color, these two colors here. Okay, well, the more you increase it, the less refractive the water is. Now I found a good value to be in the minus 1.5 range. Well, of course, you can tweak it. Now, ambient occlusion is just some shadowing around the edges. Now, if I place something like a border here, like this, ambient occlusion is the light and darkness you will get, or at least, how do I explain this? In the areas where you have objects, it gets darker, and the areas where you don't have objects, it gets lighter. So you need to So you need to find a good setting. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Well, I usually leave it at 0 unless you have a complicated terrain with which to work for. So the next effect for now. Now this is a very simple one. The Fresnel effect is just at the edges. It shines more or it glows more, and the color we define it here. Okay. Define the color here. This is the edge color, and this is the rest of the color. See the body of the color. Okay, and we have two parameters to control it. This is how far does the edge go, and this is, if it goes, how sharp it is. Let's say that you shouldn't really touch the second one, And here is one more thing. You can make it pulsate like this, or not. And that's it about the Fresnel shader. This is very simple. Here we have the refraction shader, and it does what it says according to a normal map, which I will provide one, of course. You can refract light and choose how much you refract light. Okay, let's see a real case. This is a lamp which uses this refraction shader. Let's get it somewhere where we can see the effects better. Okay. So what does the shader contain? It contains an albedo, which is optional. You can remove the albedo and have perfect glass, so to speak. Or you can put an albedo and increase this value here. Now it should be at 1 on normal objects, but on dimes I prefer 2. And we have the normal map, of course. And here is the value which controls how much we distort it. And one more thing, let's go to this to see it more clearly. You can also have these objects have shadows, such as this. And it's just this slider. This controls the shadows. I usually leave it at no shadows. But in case you want a soft one, you can leave it at 0.5. Okay, so next up we have the light revealed shader. Here it is. So this texture here only shows when a certain light with a certain color is directly lighting it. So let's create one from scratch to really understand what happens. Let's create a new material. Okay. Change the shader. The light reveal decal. Now before we start, we have to create a pod as well. Okay. Lift it up. Okay, now another component, we need a light. And we have to make sure it's a spotlight. It works only under spotlights. Increase the end a little bit and make it strong. Okay. Now we assign the material and we see nothing. The reason is because we need to select a texture. Okay. And this color here is important because this is the texture. Okay, I'm going to show you these values right now, what they do. Alright, you see it working. Now let's tweak the values. First of all, this is the mask clip value. The texture needs to have an alpha channel to remove the parts you don't need, such as this one here. It's just a normal alpha channel, nothing else. This difference threshold means that how different does this color that the shader requires and the light have to be in order to still tolerate showing it. Now the further away you get from the original color, the less you show it, and it comes to a point where you don't show it at all. This value is the one that tells you that it can afford a wider range of colors. Now this here is the light power, and the more you increase it, the brighter it shines. You need this because if you want your light to only affect this kind of shader and nothing else, not your geometry, all you have to do is set it in another layer, and in order to increase the brightness, you increase this value. Easy enough. So yeah, that's about it for this shader. You need to keep the difference threshold something like this, no minimum. Let's get a real UV light. I got one here. This is the, let's say, standard UV light. You go to the material, select the value that the light must be in order to show it. Go to the light. plug this value in, and all you have to do is increase the light power a little bit, because this is naturally a lower value light, or let's say a darker light. Okay, that's the light reveal decal and its parameters. Now let's get to this one. This is a teleport shader. It does what it says. Here is the value that you need to control from a normal object. It doesn't have its own texture, it's just some texture. The more you increase the teleport value, it starts to teleport, and now it disappears. So what's going on here? Well, you can assign albedo, normal, and specular, like you would do in any other normal material. This is the state where it shows before you teleport. This is just an offset of the teleportation effect. If you want to have some crazy values, I suggest you increase this. If not, decrease it. The range here is an important attribute. It means from 0 to 20. It means that you have to push the slider this way in order to achieve teleportation. But from 0 to minus 20, you have to push it this way. Now, the closer it is to 0, the less push it needs to achieve teleportation, and the more you increase the value or decrease the value, the more push it needs to achieve teleportation. A value of 20 is fine, and it takes a little while to do the teleportation. You see this state a little bit more. Kind of hard to put it on words, especially in the tutorial. Anyway, the panning direction is the direction in which the texture is going. -1 is up, 1 is down, and these two values have no effect. This one is left or right, and also affects the speed. The higher the value, the higher the speed. I suggest -1 or -2 and a 0, so you just teleport up or down if you want. -2 is what I found a good value. The tiling, this value here, is of the noise texture. If you put a low value, you get a very blurry texture. The higher the value, the more detailed the noise texture will have. And this part as well. Let's say 5.5, 50.50. Okay, that's it about this shader. This mask clip value is just another way to teleport without touching the slider, if you want that. And time speed is how fast this thing actually goes. Now I suggest you use a value of 2. This is a very good value that I found, but of course you can change it up to your needs, to suit your needs. This is very similar. You can also plug in textures, but I won't for this example. The difference is that instead of a noise, you have these lines here. That's basically the difference. You can also control the color of the lines. And the teleport is the same. This part is the same as this one. The range as well. The mask clip value, as I said, the same. Now here is where it gets different. The tiling amount is the amount of bars you're going to see. The lower the value, you see less bars. The higher the value, you see more bars. This indicates how thick they're going to be, or thin. And the speed is, well, self-explanatory, how fast they're going to be. And the panning direction is, well, what it says. It won't have an effect on the left and right axis, on the x-axis, because this only goes up or down. So only the y value is needed. Yeah, that's about it. Now these are the shaders that I have made. But there are also some shaders that I found from a guy, and they're free. You don't need to buy the spec in order to get them. And the rest of what you see here are from that guy. I'm going to provide the links in the description. What I've done is just modify them and make them a little bit easier to use, and I'm going to show you how to use them. But the links that I will provide also have tutorials in them. So again, this is not from us, this is not from me. I got them from a site, from Github. They're free to use commercially. I just improved them a little bit, and that's it. This is not my work, this is somebody else's work. And it's a great work. We must say that. And it's free, of course. If you don't want the rest of this, any of this pack, if you want only this, I will provide the links in the description. Now, as I said, apart from what you've seen previously, everything else is made by these two shaders that I'm going to show you. This AdultLink, Hollow Shield, and Vertical Dissolve. Okay, these shaders are very flexible. The person who made them made sure of that, and I'm very grateful for that. And as I said, everything you see here, as diverse as it may seem, are the results of those two shaders. I'm going to create one from scratch. Material. Let's create a sphere. Maybe a cylinder. Or a sphere would do better. Okay. And we see nothing. Why? Well, first of all, let's get to know the contents or the parameters that are available to us. The fill amount is the amount of dissolve. It's like the teleport amount. And it only goes in the y-axis. Invert, what it says, goes the other direction. And now this use world coordinates, now I have to let you see to understand it. Let's take a prefab. Say this worked fine. And I tried it. This elephant here. Let's make it bigger. Okay. Now let's get a shader here. Material here. Select the material. Okay, seems very weird, right? Laser. That is because the shader is not calculating the world coordinates, it's calculating the UV coordinates, which in the case of the elephant, it doesn't really work that way. When you use the world coordinates, it calculates everything from the y-axis. So it works fine now. Okay, let's go back to our sphere. As I said, we're going to create one from scratch. And the tint inside is the part inside the shader or the object, whether you want it tinted or not. And here's the color that you, if you want it, you can select one. For this I don't want it. Now the border is very similar to the Fresnel. It's only on the outside. In fact, scratch that is not similar to the Fresnel is at the part where the shader gets, and you can specify the settings here, the width, whether it's noisy or not, and you have to specify speed of noise as well. And you need to also specify these settings here. Maybe this is a little bit too much. Let's select 1 and 1. Okay, now these different settings here, it's hard to put them in words, so you have to see them in action. These are what create these wobbly effects, and the offset is just an offset. I suggest you leave it at 0. Let's try to imagine two axes, like this one and this one, and giving them sinus waves to create this, what you see here. I'm gonna remove some of the craziness, but it's very flexible. As I said, all of this half of this, are made from the same shader, and they all have different effects solely due to these parameters here. Rim light, well, we know what rim light is. It's the glow on the edges of an object. Here we can specify the color of that glow. We can also specify the power. We've been through this. Scale. I suggest you leave scale at 1. And bias. Bias means how much of the rest of the object it's going to cover. I'm going to leave it at 0. You have to tweak it just a little bit because high values, well, they get crazy. Now here we get the textures part. The textures is, well, simple textures. Albedo, normal, and specular. Okay, nothing special there. If you want the effect and textures with it, this is where you go. And occlusion as well. But it's hard to see. Now the emission properties are sort of funky. First you need an emission map. Let's select one. And you also need color. Now basically based on the map and the speed is how the map is going to move, and the tiling is how much you're going to repeat the map. Okay, so let's select 20 by 20. Let's select a better color. Better color. Now it's not going to be the same as this one here because we're tinting it with this one, so it's going to be a blend, or at least a multiplication of those two colors, so it's not going to be the same. Just play around till we find the value you want. As I said, this here is the speed at which the texture here moves, and this is the tiling the texture here gets. Now you can of course remove the texture and just have some emission, but it works better when you have the texture. Now the secondary emission is an emission within this texture here. I'm going to try to find a better one. This one seems nice enough. You can also specify the same things and have some tiling. Desaturate to remove its colors. It's the same as the first one, just another one on top of it. And the noise, let's get a nice texture going. This one here seems fine. Okay, this one here. You need to give it a scroll speed and some tiling. Let's give it 50 and 50. It basically controls the secondary emission. It's a noise for the secondary emission. As you can see, when you get too close, that noise here is what controls the texture of the secondary emission. Kind of hard to see, and you really don't need to go this far down the line to get an effect that you want. But if you do want that, these are the options. Okay, and we still have another one, another shader left. Let's create another material. Shield. Let's just go hollow. Okay. Create a sphere. Assign this material to the sphere. Go to the AdultLink shaders, hollow shield. Okay. Now this one is more straightforward than the last one. Doesn't mean that it's not as powerful though. So global opacity, whether it's visible or not. Inner opacity, how much color is the Fresnel going to have inside, and the edge opacity is how much the edge is going to take priority. Let's select another color. I recommend you leave bias where it is, because in this shader the inner and outer opacity do a better job at controlling the bias, and scale leave it as it is. Increase the do a better job at controlling the bias, and scale leave it as it is. Increase the power if you want the edges to have more more light, basically. Okay, the textures, the same as any other. Okay, they get blended on top of the effects that are previously there. And you can also create some speed. Increase the intensity to make the texture more visible. You're going to need to use this with some specific shaders, or at least some versions of this shader, because the texture will not be visible at all unless you increase the intensity, like I did here. And the tiling is going to be useful if you want to do some wavy effects like this. And the panning speed is, well, how fast and in which direction to pan it. If I select 0, it won't move in the x-axis, and if I select 0 here, it won't move in the y-axis. I would say -1 and 3 would be good values. So it moves in both directions at a very nice speed. Secondary texture is basically what it says. I'm going to select a random texture here. This seems nice. Increase the power. Increase the tiling. And we need a tint as well. Okay, maybe not this much. We've got too much power here. 50. 30. Okay. And let's say 3 and 1. Maybe not, just 1. So it's the same as the previous one. It's layered on top of it, and this one goes this way, and the first on both directions, but more on the x one, on the x direction. If you invert it, it just goes blank. To be honest, I don't really know what it means. Okay, let's skip to noise. Noise is what it says. It needs some scale. It needs some speed. And basically is just a texture that gets everything. Oh, let's remove this. Remove this too. It's basically a texture that moves very rapidly according to the parameters that we've given it. Now, the less sharpen you give it, the more blurry it is. The more sharpen you give it, the more sharp it is, like you can see in the screen here. Distortion is the thing that makes this click. If I enable distortion, it makes it wobbly. The scale is how much it's going to be. The speed is how fast it's going to be. And the roughness is how rough it's going to be, how much pointier it will be. The pulsation is an effect which grows it and shrinks it, and these are the values. Now I suggest you only touch the amplitude. It means how bigger it will get and how smaller it will get, and the frequency is how fast it will achieve that result. Okay, higher frequency, more of this. Bigger amplitude, bigger sizes and smaller sizes. In a nutshell. These are just offsets. I, to be honest, can't really tell you what they really are. And the tessellation, now this is part where you need to be a little bit careful. I'm going to show you why. If you go to the wireframe mode, these are the vertices, the mesh itself. The more you tessellate, these are the vertices, the mesh itself. The more you tessellate it, the more vertices it will get. Of course, it will get more beautiful, so to speak, as to there is no extreme roughness. The edges are smoother, as you can see. But, of course, it comes at a cost, more vertices. And that's, of course, not good if used too much. Like, if I went extreme, this is bad. Okay, it doesn't look that much better, if at all, and also consumes too many resources. Now this would be a good value, in my opinion, to tessellate it. As you can see, it's not that much, and the effect is nice. The distance is, if I went too far and went to the wireframe mode, now I don't need to tessellate it when I'm this far out, because I can't even see the effect. So let's save some performance and use the distance property. How near do I have to get in order for it to show? If I select 5, if I'm within 5 meters of the effect, it will show the tessellation. if I'm within the max distance of, let's say, 10. Any further than 10, it won't show anymore. Okay, and it's just a smoothing technique to smooth the tessellation. Okay, so yeah, basically that's the shader. These are all the shaders. As I said once more, from here, these are what I have made. Everything else is from AdultLink, and it's free. And you don't need to buy this pack in order to get them. I just integrated them because they were, well, free, and I made them a little bit easier to use. That's it. You can download this on the links that I will provide, free of charge, and thank the guy that made it. Or girl, I don't know.